Live. Britain is for Brits, recapture our national identity and defend the homeland. Would you at home support that kind of language when it comes to tackling illegal migration in the UK? Because breaking tonight on The Late Show Live, it can be revealed that the Tory party is promising a brand new illegal migrant removals force that would mimic the aggressive and, I argue, effective ICE deportation team right here in the United States that's kicked out around 2 million illegal aliens. According to the Tories' plans, the force would be given £1.6 billion, sweeping new powers, and a target to deport 150,000 people each and every year from Britain. That's 750,000 illegals over the course of a parliament. And it would be directly modelled on America's Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE as we now know them, the agency that President Trump has turned into a sledgehammer against illegal migration. Here in the United States, adverts like this fill TV screens warning that illegals, their time is up.
Let me deliver a message from President Trump to the world. If you are considering entering America illegally, don't even think about it. Let me be clear. If you come to our country and you break our laws, we will hunt you down. Criminals are not welcome in the United States. For too long, weak leadership has left our borders wide open. Well, those days are over. Under President Trump, we are defending American families and restoring their safety. If you try to enter illegally, you will be caught, you will be removed, and you will never return. Follow the law, and you'll find opportunity. If you break it, you'll find consequences.
Could you imagine the Home Office doing that? Or maybe Shabana Mahmood, front and centre of a TV commercial, doing the same thing in the UK? Well, since President Trump returned to the White House, ICE has rolled out mass deportation raids and been given sweeping new powers to fast-track removals. That's despite violent resistance from leftists. And I'll tell you something, it works. Over 2 million illegal migrants were removed from the United States in less than 250 days. Well, now Kemi Badenoch wants Britain to follow America's lead. But the big question is, could a British version of ICE end up maybe looking more like this? So, will a British ICE force actually fix the border, or is it just another slogan in search of a solution? Because in America, the crackdown isn't just policy, it's nostalgia, sold as a return to the country people once grew up in. And if you're listening on radio, that clip playing now is a nostalgic piece about America's so-called times of past, the best times of past, and it's captioned, "Life after all criminal aliens are deported." So Trump's America is setting a past to believe in, but would a UK ICE make Britain great again? Well, let's get the take now of the former senior correspondent for the Sunday Times and senior fellow at the Policy Exchange, Andrew Gilligan. Andrew, nice to see you again. Good evening. Thank you for your company. What's your take on this massive announcement from the Tories this evening?
I'm very supportive. I think it's back to the future, actually. If you go back into the early years of this century, sort of 2004, 2005, we were deporting 25,000 people a year. There were enforced deportations of 25,000 people a year. Now, as a proportion of the number coming in, that's actually not so different from 150,000, because the number coming in has soared in the last 20 years. But the number actually being deported involuntarily has collapsed. So during COVID, it was as little as 2,000 a year. It's only 8,000 a year, even though the numbers of actually arrivals, illegal arrivals, have massively risen. So I'm completely in favour of this, and I think it's totally practical. We were doing it in the same proportions in 2004-05.
We're living in a time of what feels like pretty significant social change, and it makes us question things that we've even taken for granted for decades. And one of those at the moment that people are wondering about is actually money. Is the money in your bank account safe? Should you be investing elsewhere? Are we looking at a potential global crash? What will it mean for your savings? Is there a way that you could be using your money that might be outside of government control even? Well, TallyMoney is potentially one solution. So I'm delighted to say that I'm joined today by the CEO and founder of TallyMoney, Cameron Parry. What is TallyMoney?
Well, at TallyMoney, you basically get gold you can spend. So we give people an individual account in their name, everyday account. They get a sort code, an account number. They use that account just like they would pounds from their bank, but it's milligrams of gold that we brand as Tally.
Okay. Why would you do that, though? What is the benefit to the customer instead of just having a normal pound sterling account?
Gold's performance against the pound is above 11% per annum over the last 25 years on average. But we still need money in our daily lives, and we have savings. We know that it's good common sense and prudent to save up for things, not just living credit. You know, whether it's a holiday or a rainy day, your retirement planning, you need to have money in your life, basically, that you can rely on, that's dependable, that nobody meddles with, that nobody can weaponise against you, which is another element of government control when it's the government currency, which we could talk about another time. And it should be pretty simple and straightforward, and that's what we deliver at Tally. And really, we just want people to feel safe and happy with their money. There was a time when the bigger your bank balance, the more confident you felt. Now it's like, I need to do something with it. I can't leave it there. In Tally, you can.
Okay, brilliant. Cameron Parry from TallyMoney, thank you so much.
Thank you, Bev.
Of course, the Americans, we know, I love America because they're big, they're bold, they're brash, everything's harder and better. Do you think the Tories or even Reform would dare try and mimic some of the language and the approach we see here in the US? For example, Britain is for Brits, reclaim the homeland, etc., etc. Do you think we'd ever get to that point?
I think, look, you won't see kind of quite the same kind of physical aggression that you see in some of the American stuff, like, people being manhandled in courtrooms, journalists being sort of taken to the floor when they try and talk to people who are being deported, that kind of thing. It'll be done in a slightly more weedy British way. And I think the other thing you've got to say is you've got to have kind of what seems to me missing a bit from the current announcement, maybe it's in some of the detail I haven't seen yet, is agreements with the receiving countries where you're going to deport them to. Now, America's got a big advantage in that it's extremely big and powerful, and the likes of Mexico really don't have much alternative but to take people back. Whereas Britain is smaller and less powerful and effectively relies on the countries from which these people originally came agreeing to take them back. So if you look at the stats at the moment, for instance, the vast majority of enforced deportations actually go to about 5 or 6 countries, mainly places like Poland, Albania, Romania, places with which we have agreements. So there's going to need to be some work done on that, I think, if this is really going to work.
Andrew, there's a long way, of course, to the election. Things can change. Reform are leading every poll for the past 6 or 7 months. But do you think between now and the election, whenever it's called, I mean, I don't think Labour will call an early one. They're not turkeys voting for Christmas. But do you think between now and then that we're going to have a game of sort of immigration top trumps? Who can outdo each other with the more, I don't think it's extreme, but, the more extreme policy when it comes to dealing with illegal migration?
Look, I think the British public, the tolerance of the British public for illegal migration is rapidly diminishing. And what we've seen really is decades now of progressive overreach, where, I think most people are all right about reasonable levels of immigration. They understand that you can't have absolutely zero immigration, that there are some jobs which, people from this country won't do. You have to import people to do them. But the numbers have just got completely out of hand in the last 10 years or so. And I think it's stretched people's patience. So, yes, I think there probably will be. I think the Overton window shifted massively to the right. I still think instinctively almost everyone in Labour is instinctively uncomfortable about this stuff, but I think they recognise they've got to talk the talk, at least, if they're going to see off the reform threat.
Yeah, political chameleons, some would argue. Andrew, thank you very much. Really appreciate your company. Andrew Gilligan, former senior correspondent for the Sunday Times and a senior fellow at the Policy Exchange. Thank you very much, Andrew. Let me know your thoughts on that. gbnews.com/your say. Lots flying in already. Nick Parsons, good evening, Nick. You've said the trouble is that no one really trusts or believes the Tories anymore after 14 years of failure. Brexit Crusader, you've said we need someone like Trump over here in Britain. He stops illegal boats coming into his country, doesn't mess about. I mean, it's less boats, I guess, in the US. It's more the sort of invasion of the southern border. The boats that he is dealing with is the sort of narco drug boats coming from the likes of Venezuela. And ex-military, good evening, you said Kemi is desperate to keep Conservatives relevant and keep her leadership with an extreme policy. That would never happen. Again, I don't think it's that extreme. I think it's just protecting your borders. Well, let's get the thoughts now of my panel tonight. I'm joined by the chair of Republicans Overseas UK, Greg Swenson, and also the journalist, Angelina McCarthy. Thank you both for joining me. Thank you. Good evening for your company.
Good to see you, Ben.
Greg, let's start with you. Is this an extreme policy, and could you see something like the UK ICE in Britain?
No, it's not an extreme policy. It's a no-brainer. It's just common sense. And yes, I can see it working in the United Kingdom. It has to work in the United Kingdom because the people have just become fed up with it. And as Andrew said, there's been progressive overreach. It's not just in the UK. It's happening in Ireland. It's happening in other countries where illegal migration or mass migration is the #1 issue. So why not deal with it? So how is that extreme to deport people that are breaking the law or to stop illegal migrants from coming in? It's just absurd.
What about the kind of approach, though, Angelina? Do you think, as I said, we'd have the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, front and centre of a commercial like we had Kristi Noem, who's the head of the Department for Homeland Security here. Could you imagine British politicians kind of doing that kind of thing and reading out the language, as I said in the intro, reclaim Britain is for Brits? First of all, do you think that kind of language is in any way racist?
No, it's definitely not racist, and I don't think there's any problem in reclaiming Britain for Brits. But it's understanding that Britain is not just that standard, typical white male, which a lot of people think, hey, Britain for Brits. They see that perception is that they see it is glorifying that white person, but it doesn't mean that. There are multicultural communities in Britain, just as there are in Americans, and what an American looks like, Americans for Americans, is different from maybe what Americans looked like in the 80s, and the same with the Brits. Is what a British person looks like today is different than what a British person looks like in the 80s, and I think Britain and Americans need to understand that. And when we're reclaiming our country for the people that live here currently, that includes that multicultural society that are citizens of that nation.
Tell our British viewers and listeners why ICE is so controversial here for those on the left. What's the issue?
Because they're racially profiling people and pulling them over because of their race and accusing them of being illegal just from that racial profile. So that's a huge trigger for people. On top of that, they're also targeting people who aren't citizens. So you actually have, and I'm someone who's spent a lot of time at Trump rallies and with different MAGA audiences at CPAC, and I talk to illegal migrants as well. You have a lot of Hispanics here who are actually for and support Trump. Again, but then when you have ICE people coming after people, they're like, I'm here, I'm trying to get legal status, but I'm not a criminal. So you see in the media people and families being torn apart because you're having this racial profiling, and they're like, I'm not committing crimes, and people are very triggered, and they're getting kicked out as well, and people are feeling very triggered about that. Now, people also, legal citizens are getting arrested. People are getting triggered by that. People who have a right to be here, and I think there's a bit of disorganization and chaos, maybe because we are reacting so quickly. We're trying to get mass deportation. Look, we're not even close to Obama's numbers, right? We're not. And he's trying to get there, but because he's trying to do that at such a rapid speed, mistakes are being made. And it is causing a bit of chaos within America itself.
But Greg, isn't that not sort of par for the course? I mean, Trump ran on the ticket of mass deportations, getting rid of the illegal aliens, and it's a matter of fact, the numbers are disputed, but between 10 and 25 million illegals flooded into the United States under Joe Biden. So I guess you're going to have some collateral damage, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, mistakes will be made, and I think the left jumps all over that because that's all they have is racial politics and identity politics. So that's always going to be their default, right? But the reality is, most of the illegal migrants, if you look at their percentages, are from Latin America. They're Mexican, they're Venezuelan, Guatemalan. So is it racial profiling, or is it just the fact that most of the illegal migrants that are together, like in a migrant hotel, for example, well, of course, they're Venezuelan. What do you that's not racial profiling. That's just actually going after illegal migrants. They happen to be Hispanic, yes.
It sounds similar to the stop and search debate in the UK, in London, where the police at one point were arguably racially profiling young black kids, but the fact of the matter is it was young black men who were killing each other with knives, so that's why they were getting stopped.
And again, we have it is racial profiling, because at the end of the day, you're not stopping white Americans, you're not stopping the Brits here, no offense, and being like, hey, where are you from? You're not.
I haven't seen a lot of Brits cross the border to get into this country.
I have in DC. There's a lot of them here, and we're not.
I'll see you later, then, guys. I'll leave you to it. I'm off.
Show me your papers.
The thing is, we're not asking the white people here to be show me your papers. We're not, and we're doing that with the Hispanics. And Hispanic people have a long history of living in America. California used to be part of Mexico, okay? Right? So we have, and even Texas, we have a lot of American Mexicans in Texas who are more American than maybe third or fourth generation people
here. There's no
here.
dispute about that. I'm just arguing.
So to target those people and to not target white people, it is racial. There's a point of racial, but maybe that comes with that you're saying that comes with part.
And it's similar to search and frisk, and I always feel bad for people that can't get a taxi because the taxi drivers don't want to go into the bad neighborhoods. I mean, it's unfortunate, but if 53% of the homicides are committed by one particular ethnic group, well, then that's who you have to target.
Greg, just finally, you've got your sort of finger on the pulse more than any American, I think, when it comes to UK politics. Of course, you're at GBNews in the studio there in London a lot of the time. What do you make of this coming from the Tories? I guess they have a trust issue, don't they?
Great question. I mean, it's too little too late, right? I mean, they were the ones who started letting in the boats, right? So they don't have a lot of credibility. I mean, better late than never, I guess, but it's going to be a really difficult moment for the Tories to try to argue that, and Reform will jump all over them on that and say, look, you were in power for 14 years and you created this problem. The Labour's just exacerbated. They didn't create it.
Well, I think even Labour said tonight, they said something similar. They said the Conservatives' message on immigration is we got everything wrong, we won't apologise, now trust us. It won't wash, which I think was quite a good comment.
Point.
And somebody else said, Guy Morgan-Jones on your say, good evening, Guy, you've said, well, at least we know where all the hotels and HMOs are so we can get a good head start. Good point.